good time. Learned a lot, and got the car to where it was in pretty good shape. I got a chrome breather, and a chrome air cleaner, and some acorn nuts, and I was styling. You know, I was and the thing that really tightened me up at high school was a guy named Nick Manali. He had a 33 Roadster. Mine was a Cabrio, as you can see, and his car was a Roadster, and it was channeled. And he'd give me a ride home in it. This was before I bought it, but it was what led up to me buying that particular car was the fact that he had one, and he was the coolest guy in town. He had zipper shoes and peg pants and ducktails, and he was in Louisiana. That was known as a cat. And the opposite side of the fence was the frats, which are the fraternity guys, which is what Cupid is. Which we'll get to Cupid at some point. And I was dazzled by him. And at this point, I'm working on cars, and other guys are playing football and baseball, different kinds of sports. So I'm becoming like the car expert. People would come to me and say, "What do you think's wrong with my '41 Chevy?" And I'd pontificate, you know. "Oh yeah, well it's this, that, and the other." And then I'd go ask Not, and Not would tell me what it sounded like, and I'd go back and feed it to him, you know. So I did that. Graduated from high school. Well, when I graduated from grammar school, I finished first in class. When I graduated from high school, I finished 407th out of a class of 409. And two of the guys that I hung out with finished below me. So this was kind of a seedy element of this particular high school, but not in a bad sense. Understand that I was raised in a father knows best kind of atmosphere. My parents were married like 50 years. My dad worked at the same job for 42 years. This was really the typical American 50s family. We rented a house when I was little. When we got, when my dad finally got enough scraped together, my grandfather gave him half of a piece of property. And he and I went in and raised the dirt level. My grandfather had the guys that scraped the street with his graders grade a bunch of excess into the yard. And my dad and I moved that with wheelbarrows and leveled out the ground and then poured the foundation. And then the guys, the builders, came in and built the house. But that's the kind of history I had. I was, if you watched any of those 50s television shows, that was my family. And my sister and I and all my cousins and stuff all lived around us. So understand that there was no hardship, but there was no extra money. And so as soon as I got out of high school, I started looking for a job. And I'd show up in that cabriolet it had straight exhaust pipes that were made out of flex tubing because nobody knew how to make exhaust pipes for 33 Fords. I took it to the Midas shops and stuff like that, and they run me out of the place. And I didn't dare bring it over to Knott because I knew I couldn't afford him, but he'd have done it anyhow, you know. So where was I? Looking for a job with this car. People would look askance and figure I was some kind of greaseball kid because this is the 50s and hot rods were not so hot. So Charlie Bender, who was a guy I went to school with, he had a 39 coupe that was a tail dragger with skirts and a flipper hubcaps and dual exhaust. And it was a coupe, so the rain didn't get in. So I traded him straight across for the Roadster. And now that made me more of a legitimate guy. So I went to work for American District Telegraph and installed burglar alarms in jewelry stores and businesses and stuff like that. And that got kind of boring. I pitched that, and the next job was in a wholesale drug house. McKesson and Robbins was the name of the place, and I think it was a national chain at that point. And I was stocking shelves, and this place sold everything to everybody, drug-wise. And you could buy animal medicine, and they had animal implement stuffs, and they had a thing called the cattle prod, which is a stick about this long with 2 points on it, and it's electrified. And if the cow won't move, you zap him, and boy, he's gone. Well, I'm in the counter putting up medicine, and somebody hit me from behind with one of those cattle prods, and I went through the drugs, through the stand of stuff. And you've seen those movies where it goes. It was the guy that owned the place, his son, that did that. And of course, we got it all repaired, and nobody tattled on him. I didn't know who did it. Later, I found out that it was him. So then we had a dumbwaiter, and everybody used to have to go down the stairs at night when it closed up, and he would jump in the dumbwaiter and lower himself down. What I did was, I went down first, and I waited for the dumbwaiter to start moving. And it got about between floors, and I put the stick in it. He spent the night in that dumbwaiter. That caused me to get run off. So now I'm on the street again. And I go to the Air Force recruiting station, because I need to join the Air Force Reserve, because the draft has hounded you, and I'm going to turn 18 in October. So I figured I might as well join the 1954. And I graduated from high school, I was still 17. And so I went down to this recruiting station, and I talked to the guy. I told him I wanted to join, and this, that, and the other. And he says, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 17. He says, "Well, you have to get your mother's permission." And I said, "To join the reserve?" He says, "This isn't the reserve. This is the active. This is full-on Air Force." Well, okay. So let me see. So I went home and I talked to my mother about it, and she wasn't having any part of it. And I said, "Well, look, it's better than getting drafted." So she reluctantly signed for me, and away I went into the Air Force. And they sent me to San Antonio for basic training. And I had started learning about drag racing through the magazines and stuff when in the last years of high school, you read a lot of hot rod magazines. I had a jacket, a windbreaker, that I had traced one of the hot rods off of the center spread of Hot Rod magazine, and I was cool with this gray jacket and that drawing on the back. And drag racing started getting my attention.
But you still hadn't been to a drag race.
No, hadn't been to a drag race. There wasn't any drag racing until '55 when the safety safari came through town. That's when drag racing finally got to Louisiana. We did a lot of racing on Chef Mentor Highway, but it was mostly topside. We'd go out there and see who could go the fastest. It was not drag from a light. You did that in the city, from light to light, but racing was going out there and seeing how fast it would go, and not truly had the fastest car in town, because that 39 coupe would run about 125, and nobody else was close. And so I run into this drill sergeant who had a brand new '54 Oldsmobile. And I had hung around Jake's speed shop enough to where
In New Orleans.
Yeah, in New Orleans, to where he and I were pretty close. I worked the phones. When I'd go hang around the place and answer the phone for him, he'd send me to he shipped everything by Greyhound in those days, and he would send me to the Greyhound bus station in his 40 Ford sedan delivery, which was a kick to drive because it had a good flathead in it too. And he built a bunch of boat motors and rum runner motors, built a lot of rum runner motors. And so he and I got to be good pals, and he used to give me a quart jar of mixed fuel to put in my gas tank, and he wouldn't tell me what it was. And so it really it brought things to life. I have no idea what it was to this day, but I talked the guy with the 54 Oldsmobile into trying some of this stuff. And I said, and here's how we do it. We went down and got a moon tank at the local speed shop in San Antonio. And we put the proper amount of gasoline, and Jake had shipped me the stuff in the jar, in a container. And I put it in the tank, and we went out looking for races. Had rigged a switch to change the fuel from the gasoline that was going to the fuel pump to the fuel mixture that would go
racing fuel.
And so we had a few races and did pretty good. So I got some more of the fuel, and he decided to go out one day on his own. And I said, now Jake says you run this about a half a mile, and then you shut it off. And he listened to me, but he didn't really pay any attention. So he got out there, and he was going really fast in that Oldsmobile and frosted all the pistons in that sucker. And there's two streams of oil mist coming out the back when he gets back to the base. He says, I think I heard it. I didn't shut it off like you told me. So we took all the stuff off, put it in he had a separate office in the barracks. He was not out on the floor with the rest of us. He puts all that stuff away, and he takes it to the dealership, and they fixed it on warranty because the car was like 3 months old, right? And they opened it up, and all the pistons are frosted. They couldn't figure out what the hell had happened, right? So that was my first venture into using stuff other than gasoline. And I had done a lot of nitro alcohol engine running with model airplanes, so I knew what the stuff was. And Tom here did a lot of research when he decided to run nitro. My research on nitro was with model airplane fuel. And somebody told me that nitro burned slow. So I built this. I got a piece of drain pipe, about 8 feet long, something like that. And I capped it, and I poured a bunch of model airplane fuel in it. And I saturated the inside. Then I poured it out, and I lit that sucker with a match. And it went whoop down the pipe. And that proved to me, that was some research, right? That proved to me that nitro was slow burning because gasoline would just go pow when it was that right air fuel ratio. So that was my experience with